Hi guys, welcome to my first vlog, Skills versus Capacities in the Weight Room. I will be looking at the back squat and the deadlift exercise. Throughout the video, I will analyse each movement to determine if the issues are indeed due to skill or capacity limitations, and where appropriate, I'll provide coaching cues and corrective exercises to fix the issues as they arise. Here we can see an athlete performing the back squat. Immediately, it can be seen that there is a lack of depth with the athlete failing to reach parallel, and we can also see that there is quite a lot of forward lean. When we slow the movement down, we can see that she reaches maximum ankle dorsiflexion quite early in the lift, meaning that she has to create a lot of hip flexion in order to achieve the depth, and this also contributes to that forward lean. Still images at full depth show that there is a lot of hip flexion and the bar travels outside the base of support, putting a lot of pressure on the lumbar spine to maintain balance. So initially it may be thought that a lack of hip range of motion may be the issue. However, an active hip flexion test indicates that this athlete can get the depth to reach at least parallel with the squat. This athlete played national level volleyball throughout her teenage and early adult years. She has a history of ankle sprains and ligament tears. Performing a knee-to-wall test to establish her ankle dorsiflexion, it quickly became apparent that this range was limited, scoring 8 centimeters on the right and 7 centimeters on the left. This is a capacity issue, and therefore mobility and corrective exercises will be focused around the ankle joint where we have identified the problem. Banded joint distractions and dorsiflexion stretching will help mobilize the ankle joint. Wall-assisted squats with loaded dorsiflexion allow the athlete to spend time in the position they want to achieve while gently loading dorsiflexion. This, even though it's not a screen, is another indication that hip mobility is not the issue for this athlete. Front foot elevated split squats provide a good unilateral variation to help the athlete explore end range dorsiflexion and help with that anterior knee translation that is limiting this athlete in her squat. We can also use 1 1/4 variations to spend more time at end range. This athlete is performing the back squat. As we can see, the athlete adopts a knee-dominant movement pattern, creating balance issues. The loading of his front to midfoot results in his heels lifting from the floor and the bar moving over his base of support. When we slow the movement down, we can clearly see that a major flaw in this athlete's technique occurs with the initiation strategy. The inability of the athlete to simultaneously flex at the hip, knee and ankle joint result in the athlete adopting a knee-dominant initiation strategy. This initiation strategy places great pressure on the ankle joint as once maximum range is reached, it forces the athlete to elevate the heels to complete the lift. Still images show that the bar travels outside the base of support and heels lifted off the floor places greater risk to the athlete. In contrast to the first athlete, this athlete does display adequate range of motion through dorsiflexion, scoring 11 centimeters on the left and 10 centimeters on the right. I would be of the opinion that this is a skill deficiency, as the knee-dominant movement pattern creates balance issues that inhibit the athlete from loading his heels. The pole squat not only provides evidence that this is not a hip mobility restriction, it also acts as a coaching cue to help the athlete balance and load his heels when squatting. We saw in the pole squat that when the athlete broke parallel, an element of tucking occurred. To increase this athlete's awareness, exercises like the bodyweight reverse lunge will allow the athlete to stabilize his hips and feel what it's like to load the front heel as he steps back into the lunge. Wall-facing squats will help provide a physical cue for the athlete. This exercise will help the athlete find his balancing point when performing the squat. The use of the wall will encourage the athlete to load his heels and initiate with triple flexion through the ankle, knee and hip while keeping the back upright and head looking forward. I will reintroduce load to this athlete by using a kettlebell. The kettlebell will help the athlete find his balancing point when he squats. In addition, using the cue grip and rip the handles, it will help the athlete create the core control and tension to prevent the tuck when he squats. When we reintroduce the bar, we can now see that the athlete is adopting a much better motor pattern. We can see that the athlete does not display the same levels of knee flexion and is now driving the hips back, keeping the chest upright and loading the heels in the squat. When we observe a comparison of before and after still shots, we can now see that the athlete's new awareness of the movement pattern is due to a more effective initiation strategy. This allows the athlete to maintain a full foot contact, and we can now see how this positively affects the mechanics of the squat, as the bar now sits over his base of support and he has less stress placed on the ankle joint on the downward motion of the squat. Here we can see an athlete perform the deadlift. It quickly becomes apparent that the athlete doesn't have a strong starting position, fails to control the bar throughout the entire range of motion. When we slow the movement down, we can see that during the eccentric portion of the lift, the athlete actually strikes the bar off his knees as he lacks control and fails to perform a deep hip hinge pattern. This athlete displays a lack of basic awareness when performing the deadlift. His setup is not defined and his initiation strategy is dominated by his inability to hip hinge, resulting in the bar striking his knees. An active straight leg raise on both left and right sides indicate that this is not a mobility restriction. So, one of the first movements I will ask this athlete to perform is a hip hinge with a dowel placed on his back. He will maintain 3 points of contact while he performs the hip hinge movement. This will give him a physical indication of what it's like to actually achieve a hip hinge while maintaining contact to his spine. I will address the setup position and the basic concept of getting tight when performing the setup of the deadlift by using a dowel in front of the athlete's shins and asking him to round his back and then extend so he can feel the start position. I will use the acronym F.L.A.G, forearms, lats, abs and glutes to help teach the movement to the athlete. I will reintroduce loading to the athlete using a kettlebell. This kettlebell deadlift will allow the athlete to drop the kettlebell behind their knees, reinforcing and emphasizing the hip hinge and allowing the athlete to apply the cues that we have just learned. After spending some time working on the exercises I prescribed, adhering to the cues I gave him, we can now see that the athlete is completing the deadlift in a far more controlled and effective manner. He's now displaying a deep hip hinge with a good spinal position. In contrast to the first athlete, this athlete has quite a good setup position, displays a good hip hinge with adequate spinal mechanics, and controls the bar throughout the entire range of motion. However, from the front view, we can clearly see a valgus on both knees through the eccentric and the concentric portion of the lift. During a static posture test, I quickly observed that the athlete presents excessive pronation at both feet. The athlete revealed that she had been wearing orthotics for a number of years, and even though they may help teach the athlete where the ankle should be during gait and standing, there was a lack of capacity and strength to maintain that position without them. And this is a contributing factor to the valgus when she performs the deadlift. Teaching the athlete how to create torque through her foot and strengthening the intrinsic muscles of the feet will help the athlete stabilize her arch. Toe shuffles, as seen in the video above, along with inversion and eversion drills with a mini band with inversion being a high priority, coupled with penguin walks, will all help strengthen the muscles of the foot and ankle. In addition, single leg hand switches off an uneven surface and glute med wall slides will both help strengthen the muscles and structures required to perform the deadlift without a valgus.